What is up, guys? Kevin from the KO Sports Corners. This is the Marlins Roundtable. We are back for a very quick episode. Um, so something went down, and maybe this has been the trend lately with us. When we record an episode, news happens the next day. That wasn't the case today, at least for now. Maybe Brian Reynolds is a Marlin tomorrow. Maybe who knows is a Marlin tomorrow. They make a huge signing, but at this moment in time, the Miami Marlins have traded Pablo Lopez, Jose Salas, and DSL prospect Byron Trurio to the Minnesota Twins in exchange for the 2022 American League batting champ Luis Arraez, as you can see behind John's screen. I'm joined by my two contributors, Sean Millerick and John Rodriguez. Man, we got a lot to talk about. Not only is Luis Arraez a Marlin, but he is the Miami Marlins starting second baseman. And you are wondering, where the hell is Jazz going to play? He is going to center field. Kimming has confirmed to the media Jazz Chisholm Jr. will be your 2023 starting center fielder. So you could kind of shut down the Brian Reynolds rumors. Jazz is the guy. He is willing to play center field. He told Kim he will play if they do not bring in a center fielder, and he will win a Gold Glove. So I hope Jazz does that. I think Jazz has a good chance of doing that. Sean, what's up? Unfortunately, football in Florida is going to take a little hiatus, maybe a week or two, until we start getting into the off season.
Oh,
But
still
man,
recovering.
it sucks, man. But what's up and
No,
what are you
but
trade?
no, doing great. This, definitely a jolt start to the afternoon when the news started to trickle out. Get on Arraez, they get their guy, get that, bat they need to jumpstart the offense and jumpstart the offense in a way that they seem to be reorienting the team to do, right? This is a contact first player. But believe it's the highest batting average in the league since he debuted. And he walks more than he strikes out. I mean, that's so putting the ball in play, it's exactly what you want to see. Hate to see Pablo go, but exciting to get that kind of bat into the lineup. Jazz playing center. That's didn't we knew a trade was going to happen. No one saw this happening. That decision being made, but that'll be much more interesting to see play out. My immediate reaction was to think of Ketel Marte, who was kind of a two-way player in that center field second split for the Diamondbacks, and he got hurt a lot doing that. He had injury issues, and the Diamondbacks stopped doing that last season. After a couple of years of that kind of baking him up. So I'm hoping Jazz could stay healthy out there. But we'll see what he does. But Arraez, glad to have that bat.
Huge bat. All right, John. Let's talk about what Miami sent out. They sent out what was at the time the number 5 prospect in the organization, Jose Salas. At the moment, he was a shortstop prospect. The top, I believe he was just under Yedi Cape. He is now the number 13 prospect in the Twins organization. And this is all according to MLB Pipeline. You just notice how depleted this organization is in terms of hitting development and hitters. When you have a guy like Jose Salas, who's a damn good prospect in my eyes, he was pretty bad in 2022. Let's be honest.
Yeah.
He was the number 5 in the Marlins system. You thought that was pretty damn good. He's the number 13 in the Twins, which is still good. But I mean, it just shows you how many farm systems have surpassed the Marlins. The Marlins aren't that top 5 farm system that we were talking about a couple years ago, led by Sixto Sanchez. You had Max Meyer, Jake Eater. Those guys are on the cusp of the big leagues and possibly graduating. And you also trade a prospect by the name of Brian Trurio, and you may recognize that last name, Trurio, because his brother Jackson Trurio is the number 1 prospect in the Brewers organization, or he's up there. He's a stud. Now, I want to mention this very quickly. Byron Trurio is younger than me. He is 17 years old. He is extremely raw. So trading him, I did not mind it. I actually did like Byron Trurio a lot. I think he follows me on Instagram or Twitter. Great guy. He was a DSL prospect. So, John, what do you think about what Miami gave up? And then I'll let you talk about Pablo, which it's so bittersweet for me. You know how well I got along with Pablo. He was great. So what are your thoughts on what Miami gave up? And then I also want to get your thoughts on Arraez.
Okay. Well, for return, I feel like it's interesting because I was reading around. I always like getting points of views from everybody in the fan base every time these types of moves are made. And it's interesting because it was kind of mixed. There was a lot of
Yeah.
people who were unhappy, and I'm questioning exactly why. Maybe it's the fact that they gave up Salas, but then I come to think of it, yeah, sure, Salas is ranked the best offensive prospect in the team right now, but have you ever come to think of Yiri Cape? I mean, Yiri Cape is still a great piece on that farm system that the Marlins still have, and they could still develop. And Kevin, we were calling earlier. You mentioned Amaya. They have Xavier Edwards that they could also use. Hell, I even saw a picture from Ferrer, and I know he likes to meme around, but he had a picture of Hanley Ramirez and Dan Ugla high-fiving each other, and he was kind of foreshadowing Amaya and Xavier Edwards by the month of June. So, so you,
Brother.
so it may seem like a joke, but we might be seeing that as an actual reality. Like, say the deadline comes by, we trade Segura, we trade Wendell, hey, the next one's up on deck, and I'll get to Jazz in a bit, but for Salas, I feel like it was generally a good trade. Maybe you were expecting an additional guy that we could get back, maybe like a
100%.
Max Kepler or some sort of piece. You mentioned the shortstop, Royce Lewis from Minnesota that they could have gotten. I feel like there was that just one more piece we could have gotten back that could have at least helped Miami kind of dodge and knock out another bird with another stone. So, but for ARRÁEZ, love it. I mean, hell, the team struggled to hit last year, and we got the batting title champion. I mean, you can't ask for anything better than that. That's an improvement right from the beginning. It's one of the days where I could actually come on here and not talk trash about my own team. Like I'm genuinely excited about what they this was a really good move. Good
I
job, Kim.
I agree.
Yep.
I agree. And kind of the point I want to mention here is yes, Luis Ariz is an amazing player. 3 years of club control. You have time to extend him. Kim was asked about the possibility of extending
Mm.
him, and she basically gave the answer she kind of gave about Brian Anderson a couple years back. We want to get to know the player. That was actually asked about Eli, so shout out to him. Um, I
He's
think Miami should
younger.
have gotten that. He is younger. He's very young, I believe.
Younger than Blade, Burdick, and there was
How old
another
is he,
player on
John?
there. 25.
Jeez, man. Blade's
Okay.
26.
Blade, I think Blade is like 25, but he's still younger in terms of like by months.
I mean, this guy's
It's
just entering his prime, and he's been doing
yeah,
this at a consistent rate. That's the thing. I mean, just look at this fan graphs. This guy strikes out at a 7.1%, and he walks at an 8.3. Now, the walk rate, you would love it to be higher. But I mean, when you're
absolutely.
striking out less, when you're walking more than striking out, you're obviously doing something right. And this guy's such a weird player, man. You look at his baseball savant, his hard hit ratio, his hard hit percentage is like in the 7th percentile. This guy hits bloopers for days, but now I will say his power numbers did improve. He went from like maybe 2 homers in 2021 to now 8 homers in 2022. So I guess that's encouraging. He's very excited to play in Lone Depot. He's gonna get a good feel of it with the World Baseball Classic. He will be playing for Team
Oh,
Venezuela.
yeah.
He will be the starting first baseman. Well, now keep in mind, him and Pablo will be teammates. So that's kind of funny there. And I guess on World Baseball Classic news, Avisael Garcia and Jesus Luzardo are on the preliminary roster for the team. So
Mm,
that adds a couple more Marlins. Miami's being very well represented in World Baseball Classic. Maybe we'll get into that at the end, but I feel like Miami should have gotten another piece.
right.
Not that
Mm,
ARRÁEZ isn't valuable like that, but he is valuable. But I think for what Miami gave up, Miami at least maybe a prospect or two should have came on the way. Maybe in the lower levels of the top 30. I would have loved an Austin Martin. I don't think that was possible. Royce Lewis would have been the dream scenario, especially with you giving up Salas, kind of swap shortstop for shortstop. But in this case, stop. I think Royce would have been center field, and you keep Jazz at second and ARRÁEZ at first, or however the hell this team would have done that. But I mean, I do believe Miami should have received another piece in return for Pablo, because Pablo is one of the best pitchers in Major League Baseball. I mean, you could put the argument that Pablo right now is your number one pitcher in the Twins. He will probably be the opening day
Yep.
guy. If it's not him, it'll be Sonny Gray. But I mean, damn, is that team good now with Pablo Lopez? You have one of the better, more underrated rotations. Now, is it a playoff team? Who knows? They're in the AL Central. They have a good chance. Pablo will get maybe his second taste of the playoffs after the 2020 seasons, if you even count that as playoff experience. But I mean, man, Pablo's going to a good spot in Minnesota. I'm super happy for him. I'll miss Pablo. He was one of the guys who really get dedicated time to anything. You asked him for an interview, he would give it to you. He was always, everything you saw on camera is the same exact Pablo you would see off camera. I could say this, and any of the Fish Stripes guys could say this, or any member of the media. This guy got along with everyone, whoever it was, and I will truly, truly miss Pablo. I'm excited to see him again in Minnesota when he returns for the second series of the year. So keep in mind he will be making his Marlins return. I don't think he'll pitch, but he'll definitely be in Miami once the Twins are in town. So all right, Sean. Do you think Miami should have gotten more in this trade? And now I kind of want to get into the Jazz Chisholm portion of this, because today Kim Eng held a press conference. I mentioned to you guys it was a crazy afternoon for me. 2 press conferences, a lot of footage looking, a lot of podcasting. I think it was like my 3rd podcast today, but Kim Eng spoke to media, and Craig Mish, I believe, is the one who asked, what will the future for Jazz hold? Now that you mentioned ARRÁEZ will be the second baseman, she says she's had a lot of talking with Jazz. Jazz has spoken to her, and Jazz is willing to play center field. He wants to play center field. He wants to win a Gold Glove at the position, and at the moment, he will be the team's starting center fielder come 2023. Not only questions come up with Jazz for 2023, but will he play that position in the World Baseball Classic? I personally think he should, and you really should look into it. Now, will he? Who knows? Maybe he plays shortstop. But, not only that, and I want to talk a little bit about the development of how this could go for Jazz. You have someone in John Jay, who is maybe one of the more proven center fielders to play this game, and with a team like the Cardinals, a very, very good team, and the Cardinals made it to the World Series playing center field. I think he's going to be crucial for Jazz. Him and Jazz better become best buddies, because they're going to be talking a lot. So, Sean, thoughts on Jazz in center field, and should Miami have gotten more in the return for the Luis ARRÁEZ deal?
Yeah, I mean, ask for more, probably, with that price tag. Salas again was, one of our, I think he was the highest rated hitting prospect, right? But if you just look at the trades they've made going back to the trade deadline. So, all right, they've traded for 4 middle infielders. They signed 1 in free agency, and they have these guys named Jazz Chisholm, Joey Wendell, and John Birdie on there. So, I mean, that's like, when were we seeing Salas, and when were we seeing Churio there? I mean, I guess I'll pour one out for the 2025, 2026 Marlins later and what they lost, but you needed to see that offensive infusion, this year. This team needs to start, moving up in the win column. And while I think we've just have been salivating the past few weeks about how no one else is selling pitching like the Marlins are, we're going to be able to get some team, over the barrel and raid their system. And unfortunately, I think the other teams knew that, you roll this lineup right now in front of your fan base and see what happens. They kind of had us in a spot too, because they know that we weren't going to spend on there, to sign one of the superstar options, in the middle. But certainly the Marlins have spent, and more than I thought they would, this offseason. But they're not signing Correa. The Twins are, they're not signing Turner. So this is kind of what you're left with, is having to deal from that position. But they got the AL batting champion. So it's just hard for me to, I guess, quibble with that at the end of the day. As for Jazz and center, again, that's I think you hit it on the head. I really would be fascinated to see what he does. And I was already going to be fascinated to watch the World Baseball Classic, because I thought he was going to play a lot of short. And I wanted to see what he looked like at shortstop. A week ago, that was my thought process. Now it's, will he get a look in center? What's that going to look like? Are there any chance he gets out there? Then, it'll be something to see. It's the second year in a row we've gone full experimental on there. So it's at least Jesus Sanchez was an outfielder. So even, it seems more of a learning process this time around. But there's not a better outfit I can think of in the sport than Chisholm. So, if anyone can do it, I think he can. But just it's the health that I worry about.
All right, John, I want to ask you before Jazz. Does this trade move? How much does this trade move the needle for the Marlins?
Um, I think a substantial amount. I mean, you get a guy who could, kind of push in, actual hits, instead of stranding runners, he's scoring those runners. He's a guy who could get
He would
very
probably be at the
aggressive.
bottom of the order,
Absolutely, yeah.
more or less.
Mhm. And not only that, you were also mentioning with ARRÁEZ on, his position. Like he's going to be playing second. And it's interesting how the Marlins are working this defensively. I did go out and, I kind of questioned, what's this sudden change? It looks like everybody's playing their secondary positions here in Miami. But, after kind of learning into it and figuring out that, hey, Jazz actually willingly said he wants to play center field, that kind of flashed the light bulb in my head, and I'm like, okay, so now let's change everything here. So Jazz wants to play center field. Um, and you mentioned, Maya and Xavier Edwards possibly coming and knocking on the door soon.
With
Now
Grosjean
you
as well.
and Groshans, there you go. So you're kind of, I think what they're trying to do is not only trying to fix their logjam in the infield, but at the same time they're also, you know, kind of admitting that, hey, maybe we can't figure out this Brian Reynolds trade. Maybe the price is too much for us to pay right now. And hey, maybe the Jazz experiment does work. Based on the past though, how did Tatis in center field go for him?
Did
That's
he did he play in the big leagues already? Center field?
yeah, yeah.
I haven't seen him, but
He
he's
did some
huge.
time.
He's his build is completely different from Jazz. Not completely different, but pretty different. He's a bulkier guy. He's bigger, a lot slower, I would say. Jazz is a lot skinnier, still bulky, very athletic, a lot of
That
speed. That's the thing I want to mention with Jazz. His switch to center field makes sense.
right.
He's
And
good
he's
at
young
second
too.
base. He's good at second base. He's young, as you mentioned. And man, Jazz in center field, I think he would get injured a lot less. And I don't think they'll swap him between each position. Now, the experiment doesn't go well. You'll put him back at second, and you'll probably have to move ARRÁEZ to first, which would kind of suck for ARRÁEZ because in the press conference, this guy was super pumped to play second. He said, I am so glad I could finally take second for myself and finally learn this position and really focus on it. And I was like, damn, this guy could play second, at least on like average second base. You'd feel pretty good.
I start questioning like
He's playing three positions if we count DH.
Oh no, yeah.
I'm glad he's pumped.
He's playing like he's gonna play third. He's gonna play short. Yeah, he'll play everywhere. But
I
I
just
think
wanted to give a little shout out to Isaac Azu who made a little thread of just how magnificent of a hitter Luis Arias actually is. Like he's hitting home runs on not just any pitcher, Garrett Cole, Logan Gilbert. Like these are established and
I think
insanely
that was
good
the Fish Stripes
pitchers.
account who put those highlights.
Oh, was it? I
Or
thought it
was it
Isaac.
I know Isaac put the Garrett Cole one. And then Eli put a whole thread of highlights.
Like this is Luis Arias actually hitting against established and absolute all-star caliber pitchers. Like this is the real deal right here, guys. Like I know we've been talking about Luis Arias since the start of this video, but like you need to like understand the emphasis. Like the Marlins actually traded for a star bat player, period.
He
Like
was an
this is the
all-star.
first one since
Never said
Marte.
Probably.
Yeah.
And you kind of assume, and I mentioned at the start that this probably shuts the door on Brian Reynolds.
Yeah,
I
absolutely.
think it does. Now
and good, honestly.
Yeah,
If they were going to ask for that much, I'd
I can tell
rather
you
give
right
up
now,
one pitcher.
in that trade, Edward Cabrera was in there, Jesus Luzardo was in there, Salas was in there. They were asking for Yuri at one point. I mean, dude, it was, and they wanted Rogers too. Like that's per source, and I can't confirm that. I know what we're thinking, but yes, per source, I can't confirm that many times. 10 out of 10. But yeah, I guess the only other thing I want to mention is first base, the situation
Mm.
there. We know Yuli Gurriel's still in the market. He actually unfollowed the Marlins on Instagram, I
Ooh.
believe a couple nights ago. That was reported by Eli or the Fish Rep, aka the Fish Reps account, on the official show. If you guys read that, he had met with Kim Eng, second time meeting this past week
Had like breakfast or something.
for breakfast. Yeah, in Coral Gables. Wonder what they had, but maybe some. What do you think? What do you think someone like that has? They must go to like some private spot.
Coral Gables.
Coral Gables, yeah. Who knows? That's all right. Whatever. So, Danny Rodriguez of Fish Stripes asked their last question: "What is the situation with first? Is Garrett Cooper your guy?" And she said, "Garrett Cooper is our starting first baseman 2023." So, for the ones wondering, at this moment, Garrett Cooper is the guy. But she did mention Luis Arraez, the possibility of him playing first when Cooper
Okay.
is resting or whatever, or injured. Because at some point, I do believe, yes, Cooper had a fully healthy year, but he was injured. He's gonna get injured at some point. Injuries always happen. It's something natural. He was
I would
injured.
like to hear Sean on this one because now that you mention it, like I feel like we don't really have a need for Yuli Gurriel. If we're gonna have Arias and Cooper kind of
Yeah,
swap,
but you're not swapping. That's the thing. He is the second baseman, John. Luis Arraez is your starting second baseman opening day and on. Unless Cooper's taking a break one day, he is your second baseman. And Cooper will be playing the majority of first. You could bet Cooper will play 130, 140 games first base if he's healthy.
so if Cooper
You
gets
think?
hurt, assume you put Arias at first.
Unless
You
all of
got
a sudden
Birdie.
you sign Yuli Gurriel, you say it's time for Troy Johnston and let's trade Cooper for a prospect capital, which I wouldn't mind seeing them try to kind of rebuild this farm system a little bit.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, and I think that should be the direction. If the team is obviously not going to contend by deadline, I think the vision should be let's actually go kind of refurbish that farm system, which is obviously being depleted, as we could all tell. And obviously this farm
For the good.
system,
And for the good, by the way. I mean, look who you
oh
just
yeah.
brought. I mean, I know you mentioned it, but I'm gonna mention it again. This has to be the best offseason of the Bruce Sherman era so far.
Easily.
I mean, and
Oh,
it's
without
nothing
question.
impressive. And it's nothing impressive at the end of the day.
Absolutely not.
But you're bringing in Johnny Cueto, who will now fill in your rotation, going into pitcher-friendly Lone Depot Park. Maybe he's gonna dance his way every day. He's gonna start. That was amazing, by the way. I want to say it. That was amazing. That was the coolest thing I've ever seen. You have Luis Arraez.
I want him closing. That's just how.
Imagine, dude. Luis Arraez, who is the 2022 AL batting champ, all-star Silver Slugger, joining your squad. Gene Segura, who had an amazing postseason. He fits what you want to do. He's a great leadership guy. You bring in a nice prospect in Xavier Edwards and Jacob Amaya, and you bring a pretty okay reliever in JT Chargois. He's a Tampa guy, so you kind of feel pretty good entering that. So you really have to say Miami, he had one hell of an offseason. So
And the question is it over? Because
I don't think so.
I
mean,
think there's a
still
reliever.
not even a reliever, because I think they could upgrade relief pitching internally.
Oh, I think they got to get a reliever.
You might have to get a veteran piece. And Chapman's
Like
off the board.
Chafin, right? Or
Would be
Reyes.
Chafin would be nice. Reyes would be nice. Michael Fulmer would be nice.
Hell,
Get
Corey
Knable now. Get the closer.
Right?
That would be nice. Matt Moore would be another guy who I'd love. And I know I mentioned you need a left-handed reliever. I am just not confident with the current core of left-handed relievers they have on this team at all. Blyer, I'm not confident in. Oker, meh. Scott, I'm expecting big things from Scott. I think he could be pretty that Anthony Bass setup guy, not the closer Anthony Bass, the setup guy. So you feel pretty good there entering 2023 with him. Am I missing someone?
Out of lefties,
No, I don't think so.
No, they added 40-man guys, so you feel good about those guys. Simpson, Soriano, Villalobos, Sean Reynolds. Those guys at some point I think will debut. So any last words from Sean or John?
I had one. But yeah, I think we did tackle relief pitching. I did want to throw those names out just in case if the Marlins are going to go look for names.
Maybe they
I
sign
know.
one more. I think Alex Reyes will be the guy in my opinion.
Yeah.
That's
That'd
like
be great.
he wants
That'll be
to
a great signing.
too. And if you could get out 2021 Alex Reyes, damn, this team's gonna be scary. And oh, this is what I wanted to mention before I get to Sean, and if he has any last words. Miami could, you're upgrading offensively, and I do think this team got a lot better offensively from 2021. Also, this is expecting bounce back from Avi Garcia, Jorge Soler, and a couple other of these guys who had down years. This could be kind of like that Phillies experiment where, geez, we had 10 minutes. All right, this could be kind of like that Phillies experiment where
You buy out of a failure rebuild.
no, not that, but where your
Ah.
defense isn't as good. It's a pretty atrocious defense like the Phillies
Right.
have, but their
Oh,
offense was
Okay.
so fucking good. Like, dude, the Phillies offense last year may have been one of the best in baseball.
yeah.
Castellanos, Harper, Schwarber,
Fireworks.
Reese Hoskins, Bryson Stott, Gene Segura was a part of that too. I mean, Real Muto. So maybe Miami. I don't think Miami will have the offense of that caliber, but they'll be pretty good. I think they'll be in more ball games this year, and those one-run losses will turn into one-run wins, especially if especially when you have a guy like Sandy on the mound every fifth day.
Oh man.
Any last words, Sean, before we wrap this up?
Nowhere to go but up for the offense. Just thrilled to have ARRÁEZ there setting things up. His season last year, 316 batting average, 375 on base percentage. That was the third worst and second best of his career in those categories on there. Like, he's done better than that. And even if he regresses, he's still miles ahead of the rest of the roster in all those categories. So just huge upgrade in that thing. I guess the only other last thing I'll throw out is, where do you think he bats?
Where do you think
I floated this question onto spaces either. I mean, Jazz loved batting leadoff last year, but
what did the guy
spent most of last season leading off for the Twins?
What did the Fish Stripes guys tell you?
Kind of not to worry about it until we see it in spring training or something. I was trying to push the conversation a little bit.
Middle of the order, I believe.
I mean, he'll be middle.
I'm not saying power hitter, but you put guys at the top that you believe will get on base. So those are the Jacob Amayas, the Jazz Chisholms, Gene Seguras, and then you have Luis Arraez. You get a hit from Luis Arraez, you're gonna drive in runners. I believe that's how it could work. Who knows? Maybe he's towards the bottom or right at the top of the lineup. So
I think,
all right, John.
I think first or second. John,
Me personally, if we're talking lineups, I'm more of like an old retro classic guy.
Oh,
I kind of like my balanced lineups. I like my righty lefty. I like that mix and match. It kind of tricks
a
the
switch hitter, right?
He's a lefty, so it puts you to think. You got Jazz, and then ARRÁEZ. You add another lefty to your lineup, but that means you could fit in a righty between Jazz and ARRÁEZ. I would not mind ARRÁEZ batting third. Like, he's like that type of guy.
I'm between that like third or fifth.
Right, yeah.
All right, John, what's your prediction time?
So I got a little prediction time. ARRÁEZ, brand new Marlin. He hit 8 homers in Target Field last year. Well, for the total, the total season. Do you think ARRÁEZ will hit at least 10 in 2023? Over or under?
Go ahead, Sean.
I'll go over.
Over?
I'll go over. I think he's gonna hit some double-decker shots at Lone Depot Park.
What do you think, Sean? You went under?
Under.
I go under. I think you'll have 9.
Oh, 9, right there.
Alrighty.
Okay.
This is where we wrap it up. I think that was a very productive show. We could do more of these. Try to do these once a week, especially if the Marlins make a move. Maybe tomorrow they trade for Brian Reynolds. Who knows?
No,
maybe
after this,
maybe they sign Yuli Gurriel.
You're welcome, fans.
Yes, this always happens. We always have to stop. We always have to cut the recording. We made a whole podcast, and now we have to cut half of it. John's releasing that one in a bit, but from Sean, myself, John, peace out. Go Fish.
Go Fish.